Jonathan Swan, I want to get you on this new reporting from Jackie Carolinick, Ken Delaney, and Vaughn Hilliard and Jake Traylor, which is that Kash Patel was called to the White House after continued questions over his behavior. They write, the embattled FBI director was set to travel to Chicago in the Bureau's jet to see his girlfriend perform at a music festival when he was called in, sources tell MS. Now, there's been a lot of frustration that has been reported in your paper on MS Now about how the White House is watching Kash Patel live his life using taxpayer funds, allegedly. But when you think about, compared to the first term, right, when there was an embarrassing headline, usually that person was kind of ixnayed very quickly. Kash Patel has been able to hold on largely, according to Jackie, because of his ability to...
Chaos erupted inside the Supreme Court as Kash Patel's testimony collapsed under withering questions. The FBI director, Trump's own choice to lead the agency, faced a live dismantling of his claims about massive firings, blocked Epstein files, and retaliation against agents who probed classified documents. Justices hammered him with evidence. Patel sweated under the lights, his answers twisted. Then Donald Trump, watching every second, went off in spectacular fashion. The hearing started tense but turned explosive within minutes. Justice Sonia Sotomayor held up internal FBI memos showing direct orders tied to Stephen Miller. Director Patel, you swore under oath you played no role in these purges? These documents say otherwise. 10 agents gone, all connected to the Mar-a-Lago investigation. Explain. Patel paused. The chamber held its breath. His response about performance issues fell flat. Gasps rippled through the gallery as more contradictions piled up. Trump, glued to the live broadcast from the White House, lost control. His face turned red. Aides say he slammed his fist on the desk. Then came the outburst. Truth Social lit up like what?
Deal with 2020 and act on what Donald Trump wants when it comes to 2020. She right?
So I don't actually have any reporting on this latest incident, but what we have in the book is checks out with what you're describing, which is that particularly last summer, President Trump was complaining quite a lot about Kash Patel. And what he didn't like was he was calling him flashy Kash. He didn't like to see him basically going to these UFC fights and flying around on the jets and just sort of embracing the lifestyle. And what Trump really wanted was to see him, quote unquote, do his job. Of course, in Trump's mind, that has a very particular meaning. And one thing that he didn't seem to grasp was that Kash Patel couldn't personally just imprison all of Trump's various enemies. So Trump was very frustrated with the Justice Department in general, with Kash Patel, with Pam Bondi. It was largely over what he saw as this slow pace of prosecutions with people like James Comey, Letitia James, go down the list of John Brennan, people that Trump wants to see behind bars. So I actually haven't got any reporting on the latest with that, but it got so bad late last year that both Maggie and I were talking to sources at a senior level of the administration who thought that it could be imminent that Trump would make a change at the top of the FBI, but obviously he hasn't. And I just don't know what the latest situation is with him.
I was going to try to ask some more forward-looking highbrow question, Maggie, but because you brought her up, can we talk about the Natalie Harper of it all? I mean, obviously, presidents across the board always find people, they have their body person or a fixer that they bring in from a past life who is able to demonstrate this extreme level of loyalty and allegiance to them and their and everything about them. But Natalie Harper has seemed to taken things to the next level, even more than someone like Hope Hicks or Michael Cohen, so to speak. Can you describe their relationship and whether Natalie is viewed as a positive force or a negative force by the people around her in the White House?
So during the campaign, and we describe this in the book, she became ever present. She would join him on the golf course when he was golfing, in the interregnum period, even before the campaign, literally sometimes running on foot behind his golf cart.
With a printer?
I think just running. But yes, she was known as the human printer because she often, in later iterations, would carry a battery-charged portable printer, and she would print out, a healthy supply of positive news that he wanted to see or she thought he would want to see. he considers her very loyal. He will say to advisors, you'll all go off and make money. We describe this in the book. She'll never leave me. Mm-hmm. But she was also a source of concern during the campaign because, among other things, she was leaving very personal notes in his private spaces, one of which said, "You are all that matters to me." Others talked about, sort of wanting to have a longer conversation throughout the day and not talk about work. The Secret Service was concerned about this. Nonetheless, as I said, he values loyalty, and he values the fact that she is willing to constantly provide, positive information. It is literally sort of the sun is always shining. There are other people like that in Trump's orbit, and we talk about this in the book, too. Boris Epstein.
Wildfire. Kash Patel just blew it at the Supreme Court. Weak, pathetic, no fight. I picked him to be tough. This is a disaster. Get it together or you're out. That was only the beginning. Sources described Trump going off in a private rant that shook the West Wing. He's supposed to destroy them, not sit there like a loser. I want loyalty, not this garbage performance. The call to Patel's team was heated, with Trump demanding heads roll immediately to fix the damage. The president who demands winning above all saw his top law enforcement ally faltering live on national television, and he could not contain the fury. This chaotic clash wasn't random. It was the culmination of weeks of mounting pressure. Patel had promised no politicization. He assured senators the FBI would stay independent. Instead, the hearing revealed coordinated efforts to remove investigators, stall sensitive file releases, and shield the president from accountability. Document after document contradicted his testimony. Emails. Timelines. Whistleblower statements. The justices didn't hold back. Justice Elena Kagan pressed on the Epstein files specifically. You claimed court orders blocked everything. We have the orders here. No such restrictions. Why the delay, Director? Patel fumbled. The air in the courtroom grew thick. Reporters scribbled notes furiously. Cameras zoomed in on his discomfort. This was live television gold, and Trump was watching it all unfold in real time. The president's go-off wasn't subtle. It was raw, unfiltered Trump. His Truth Social post spread instantly, paired with clips of Patel struggling. Legal analysts called it unprecedented, a sitting president publicly attacking his own FBI director during an active Supreme Court hearing on executive overreach and retribution. The message to everyone in the administration was clear: fail me publicly and face public humiliation. Inside the hearing, things got even worse. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson highlighted the timing. Firings happened right after Patel met with Miller. Agents who knew details about the classified documents recording, where Trump himself admitted the materials were still secret, and he could no longer declassify them. The same recording that caused gasps in earlier courtrooms. The same case Patel was now trying to bury. Patel tried to recover. He repeated lines about constitutional oaths and mission standards, but the evidence was overwhelming. Leaked communications showed him directing actions. The justices exposed the pattern. This wasn't cleaning house. This was weaponizing the FBI. Trump's rage intensified. Aides report multiple calls where he went off repeatedly. This makes us look weak. I need fighters, not this. The frustration.
For instance, who, is known in Trump's world, he's Trump's top legal advisor, known as the good news guy. Trump has made clear to people that he likes having someone who will essentially say, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be fine. In Natalie Harp's case, she's also a conduit for information. She is a way for people to bypass the official chain. She is a way to get, texts to him that people want to have him see. And that is its own level of power. And she is in almost every single, really, I'm not kidding, almost every single meeting. She is sitting, and you can see her in pictures of almost every public event that he does. She's on the side of the Oval Office, by the door, nearest to the exit to the colonnade. That is the role she plays, and that is the role I expect she will continue to.
Jonathan, I want to switch gears just a little bit and bring up the story that's come out of Houston. Man killed by federal agent in Houston was not the target of ICE search. Federal immigration agents who killed a man during a traffic stop in Houston on Tuesday had been searching for a different person, according to a Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman. I bring this up because this is the first shooting we know of since the brouhaha over the shooting of Alex Preddy, first Renee Good and then Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, which led to a lot of changes at DHS, a lot of changes in personnel, and a lot of changes in tactics, not as in your face. But I just wonder, do headlines like these cause the president, cause the administration to decide, you know what, maybe we should change course? Or do headlines like these not have any impact in the administration, and particularly Stephen Miller decide, you know what, we're going to keep moving forward on something that is disruptive, to say the least?
They definitely have an impact, but this story is a good reminder that actually, despite public perception, they haven't turned off the switch on the mass deportation, on their efforts to remove people from the interior of the country, that they're just doing it in a less theatrical way. That's really the only thing that's changed. Is before you had, you know, Kristi Noem riding around on a horse with a camera crew, Greg Bovino with his big olive coat, which we have in the book a senior White House person called his SS coat. There's less of the performative stuff, but the deportation operation is still continuing. Look, there's a division of opinion within the administration, and this is something we get into in the book. I think it's important for people to understand. Renee Good gets killed. Alex Priddy gets killed. This is in January, and there's huge public outcry. A few days after Alex Priddy gets killed, the vice president walks into Susie Wiles's office for a senior staff meeting, and he says, we should invoke the Insurrection Act, that we need to suppress these left-wing protesters. You know, he says they're all paid activists. There's not any evidence that Renee Good or Alex Priddy were paid activists, but that's what he was saying. And so then a debate ensues. And one of the top lawyers in the White House, Will Scharf, says essentially that the conditions do not warrant such an extreme action as to send in troops into these. Stephen Miller, you know, in a sort of fairly mild way for him, pushes back and says, well, we haven't really tested this authority. So it's very much a live debate. And
stemmed from bigger problems. Surprise Democratic wins in Mississippi, cracks in the Ohio coalition, growing calls for Patel's removal over perjury concerns. The hearing was supposed to project strength. Instead, it became a public disaster. The chaotic clash revealed deep fractures. Trump demands absolute loyalty, but when the heat is on, cracks appear. Patel, once the ultimate insider, was now on the receiving end of presidential wrath. This wasn't strategy. This was panic. Legal observers were stunned. We've seen presidents criticize, but going off live during Supreme Court arguments on his own appointee? This is new territory, one former Solicitor General noted. The implications stretch far. FBI morale is in freefall, agents fear becoming targets. Career professionals are questioning orders. Democrats pounced immediately. Senate hearings are being scheduled. Contempt referrals discussed. The public sees the chaos. A president going off on his FBI director while the court exposes the very abuses being denied. This moment ties everything together. The classified documents case where Trump's own words damned him. The Epstein files survivors demanding truth. The voting rights battles and court-ordered districts delivering Democratic gains. The administration is fighting on all fronts, and the internal pressure is causing explosions like this. Trump went off because he saw weakness. Patel's performance threatened the shield. The live clash in the Supreme Court laid bare the operation. Retaliation. Cover-ups. Power used for personal protection. As the hearing continued, more details emerged. Specific agents fired for pursuing leads. Files stalled despite judicial orders. Patel's testimony unraveled thread by thread. Trump, unable to watch silently, went off again on social media, amplifying the chaos. The country is witnessing the unraveling. Midterms are approaching. Voters in key states are paying attention. Economic concerns mix with these institutional fights. Trump's outburst only fuels the narrative of instability. Patel left the hearing under a dark cloud. His position weakens hourly. Federal judges have already flagged issues. Now the president himself is questioning competence. In Washington, that's often fatal. This chaotic Supreme Court clash will be replayed endlessly. The gasps, the contradictions, the presidential eruption. It defines the moment. Trump going off on Kash Patel Live as the court demands answers. The administration spins it as passion. Reality shows desperation. The walls are closing in. Legal cases mount, public trust erodes, and the president cannot stop lashing out. More fallout is certain. Leaks will continue. Hearings will multiply. The clash exposed everything. Trump went off. The chaos was live. The consequences are just starting.
At the Pearl Harbor Memorial, which is a little bit of an odd choice, traveling on his own government jet with his country music singing girlfriend. Well, today, Patel responded to some of MS Now's own reporting on how he spends his time in the government's resources, writing on social media, quote, "My jet ski is gold-plated, dumbass. Your job is to lie. Mine is to protect the American people, and business is good." Well, now tonight, the breaking news. We have exclusive MS Now reporting suggests Donald Trump isn't so happy with the job Patel is doing. The FBI director abruptly canceled a planned flight Friday to see his girlfriend in Chicago just as he was preparing to leave after top administration officials, frustrated with Patel, summoned him to the White House, according to two people with knowledge of the change. There appear to be several reasons for Patel's recall. Some in the White House reportedly found it confounding that the FBI director was leaving town amid the recent revival of the war with Iran and alleged threats against the president's life, according to a person familiar with efforts to help Patel rebuild trust with the White House. Another issue seems to be reports by MS Now and others about how Patel's lavish travel is being footed by you and I. Sources said there is at least one other unforced error. That would be the tweet today blasting us here at MS Now. Carol Leonnig is the MS Now senior investigative reporter who broke this story with colleagues Jacqueline Alemany, Kendallanian, Vaughn Hilliard, and Jake Traylor. When you've got 5 bylines, you know you can take it to the bank. Carol Leonnig. Well, so what were the circumstances, as best you can tell from your reporting, about how this was communicated to Patel? And then did he go to the White House?
He did. In fact, according to our reporting and our sources, he was basically commandeered back to the White House with plans to spend all of the day there. You know, Chris, when we first started this reporting, we were looking at, confirming, corroborating reports that he was scheduled to go to Chicago to visit his girlfriend. It's become a familiar pattern that he takes his jet to go see his girlfriend perform at various events. And this time it was at a country music street festival in Chicago, which is hosted in the parking lot of a large Chicago stadium. He was going to go to that event. He had, according to sources, scheduled a field office visit in Chicago, which FBI agents found really insulting. They felt like that was just a cover for him to be able to go see his girlfriend without any, annoying questions from reporters. That's how we started our day of reporting. But then we learned from our sources that on the tarmac this morning, Kash Patel was in a panic. He had to cancel the trip. He had to get to the White House stat because he was being ordered to come back basically to the principal's office to answer some questions and do some work. And there were a number of reasons. I have to tell you, I wish I knew precisely which one was the most important. And we don't know that yet, Chris. But you can imagine the 3 that you listed, right? We're at war with Iran. Iran tries to kill the president by recruiting people in the United States to kill him here. Number 2, he tweeted a very strange thing at MS Now about calling one of our columnists a dumbass and bragging about a jet ski that was gold-plated. And then third, the reason is that we've heard is that, one of Trump's most important and reliable allies in the Senate, Republican.
Expanded dramatic reconstruction and analysis. Let's reconstruct the pivotal moments that led to Trump's eruption. The hearing opened with procedural questions but quickly turned substantive. Justice Roberts, fresh from his defense of judicial independence, observed silently as Patel faced the first barrage. Then Sotomayor dropped the hammer with the memos. Patel denied coordination. The justice presented timestamps. Denial met evidence. The chamber reacted. Whispers turned to audible shock. Trump, seeing this, started typing. The first post was measured anger. Then it escalated. Pathetic showing by Kash. Not what I expected. Supreme Court watching this mess. Fix now. Aides tried calming him. It didn't work. The private calls grew louder. Trump went off on loyalty, results, and the need to dominate. I don't need weak links. This is embarrassing for the whole team. The clash wasn't just verbal. It was visual. Patel's face on camera. Trump's posts flashing across screens. The juxtaposition was devastating. A director fighting for survival while the boss publicly undermined him. This pattern repeats, from the recording that caused jury gasps to the walkouts over constitutional attacks. The administration faces resistance at every level. The Supreme Court clash is the latest flashpoint. Experts link it to broader erosion. Norms breaking. Institutions strained. Trump going off accelerates the damage. Voters notice. In Ohio, former supporters waver over endless drama. In Mississippi, new districts delivered blows. The chaos hurts. Patel tried pivoting to mission talk. Justices didn't buy it. More documents. More timelines. The live unraveling continued. Trump went off multiple times, each post more pointed. The message was received across Washington. Loyalty is conditional on performance, even for favorites. The chaotic live clash marks a turning point. Internal divisions exposed. Legal pressure mounting. Public spectacle complete. The Supreme Court demanded truth. Patel struggled. Trump erupted. America watched. This story develops rapidly. Expect more hearings, more leaks, more outbursts. The clash lives on in every replay. Trump's go-off wasn't calculated strategy. It was raw reaction to a failing shield. The consequences will reshape dynamics inside the FBI, the White House, and the courts. Agents are rattled. Some consider whistleblowing. Others seek exits. The institution suffers. Justice Eleanor Kagan led the charge, holding up stacks of internal documents. Director Patel, you testified under oath.
Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley is now frustrated with Patel and trying to get answers to questions about the expenses of his travel to Milan, why he purchased BMWs that were armor-plated so that he can more discreetly get around town. These are some of the reasons that have been cited to us about why the White House is kind of up to here with Patel and wanted him back at headquarters.
I just have to mention the irony here, which is that the White House loves to talk about fake news and all this stuff, but they actually know the reporting is solid and good and also respond to the reporting. You don't have to say that. I'm going to say that, but just to be clear here, right? I just want to note, just to fill out the details here, Alexis Wilkins is his girlfriend's name. She will be reporting at the Windy City Smokeout in Chicago, Illinois, in the parking lot of the United Center. I have to say, a musical festival outdoors in Chicago in the summer is basically as good as it gets. You can hardly blame a guy for wanting to go. And I also got to say, all other things considered, he does seem to be a good boyfriend. But this is what Stephen Chung had to say about the reporting, and it's notable, so I'm going to read it to you. He issued a statement without responding to specific questions about Patel's canceled trip. He said, under President Trump and Director Patel's leadership of the FBI, crime across the country has plummeted to the lowest level in more than 100 years. That, by the way, is debatable, although it has gone down. And many high-profile criminals have been put behind bars. I suppose that's true, although a lot of others have been pardoned. Director Patel remains a critical player of the administration's law and order team. Notable here, there's not any denials, not any fake news, not any name-calling.
No, that's true. They reserved that for X, where they come after us for some of our reporting. Chris, we feel very solid about this, and for lots of reasons, some of which you've alluded to. I want to say hats off to the MS Now team that jumped into this breach when we began this morning, thinking we had one story, and then we had a very different one, and then we had, really moving target in terms of a potentially really huge story. The White House angry at Patel, and it's not the first time. A trip canceled on the tarmac, a big deal. Yeah. But I really value the colleagues on this byline: Jackie Alamany, Jake Traylor, Ken Delanian, Vaughn Hilliard. I mean, none of this would be possible without them, and thanks to all of them.
Let me just reiterate one more thing, because you said it at the top, but I just want to come back to it, because just when you think about it, you've got this reporting. He obviously is under scrutiny for these trips. He's obviously under scrutiny for flying the plane and reporting, in which, again, I'm going to quote, this is actually from a letter to Patel by Raskin, Senator Durbin, that says, a credible source relayed, you told field offices in a meeting last year, if you have golf, hockey, fishing, or hunting in beautiful sites, you're going to see a lot of me. Not really hiding the ball there. After this reporting, he's sitting on the tarmac to go to Chicago, which just happens to be the city that his girlfriend is performing at a musical festival, and has arranged a visit to the Chicago field offices. It feels like he's doing the thing, right? The whole reporting you had yesterday is he comes up with these sort of ostensible cover stories for travel so that he can go and hang out. And now here he is sitting on the tarmac this morning, bound for Chicago for ostensibly a visit to the field office.
Yes. And, this is kind of what got him into such hot water with Trump the last time. I mean, we have this reporting from a while ago now, Chris, but just to underline it for your viewers, who I know are paying close attention to you and what you have to say, let me just repeat. In February, when we reported
that there was no retaliation against agents involved in the Mar-a-Lago investigation, these records show otherwise. Agents removed within hours of meetings you attended. How do you reconcile that? The room fell silent as Patel hesitated. His face tightened. The gallery leaned forward. Cameras captured every bead of sweat. Trump, seated in the White House residence, exploded. His phone came out immediately. Truth Social received the first blast. Kash Patel is losing it at the Supreme Court. Terrible, weak answers. I demanded loyalty and strength. This is a total embarrassment. Fix this chaos now or there will be changes. That post was just the opening salvo. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge, Trump went off in a series of heated calls. What the hell is happening? He's making us all look like fools. I put him in that position to fight, not to fold. The frustration poured out. Trump demanded immediate action, more aggressive defenses, and accountability for the poor performance. The president, who prides himself on winning, could not tolerate what he saw as capitulation in the highest court. The chaotic clash unfolded minute by minute. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson followed up on the Epstein files. You claimed legal barriers prevented full release. We have reviewed the orders. Those barriers do not exist as you described. Why the obstruction? Patel attempted to pivot to national security concerns, but the justices were prepared with counter-evidence. Whispers turned into audible reactions in the gallery. Reporters typed furiously. The live broadcast captured the unraveling in real time. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was the latest chapter in a pattern of tension. Patel had promised during confirmation that the FBI would remain free of politics. Yet the hearing revealed a different reality. Firings of key investigators, delays on sensitive documents, coordination that contradicted sworn statements. The evidence mounted and Trump's patience snapped. The president's go-off intensified on social media with a follow-up post. Patel needs to step up or step aside. Supreme Court is watching this disaster. My administration demands results, not excuses. The messages spread like wildfire. News anchors broke into programming. Legal pundits analyzed the extraordinary sight of a president publicly blasting his own FBI director during live Supreme Court proceedings. Inside the courtroom, the pressure on Patel mounted further. Chief Justice John Roberts, who had previously issued
himself off from some senior bureau leaders this week in the wake of multiple media reports that raised red flags about his leadership. What's more, Patel has reportedly avoided meeting with operational leaders at the FBI this week, raising fears that Patel is out of the loop on important investigations and threats. A spokesperson for the FBI declined to comment about the polygraph tests, but he denied that Kash Patel was walled off from senior staff at the FBI. I want to bring in senior investigative reporter Carol Leonnig, who's bylined on that. Mark and Melissa are still here. Carol Leonnig, it doesn't sound like someone who's been defamed, does it?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TV. But as a reporter, Nicole, this is a person hunting for leakers pretty actively. And I think you've raised this point before, which is a smart one. How do you claim you're defamed, but also hunt for people who released information that you believe maybe is sensitive or is somehow protected? As we reported at MS Now I can't remember if it was 2 days ago or a day, but it was basically a finding that Patel had ordered this investigation into the leaks or the sources to an Atlantic magazine piece that described how FBI agents were super, super worried about the leadership of the Bureau because of Patel allegedly engaging in drinking to excess on a pretty regular basis and having to reschedule meetings in the mornings after these quote unquote alcohol-fueled events. We also then learned, because once you report one story, more people want to tell you more about other things that disturb them. We learned that Patel has ordered the polygraph of all of these agents, a very large group who used to travel with him and who travel with him now, to try to find out who may be talking to reporters. This is sending a real chill through the FBI, but even more worrisome to them, Nicole, is the way in which Patel has not agreed to meet with lots and lots of other operational leaders in the Bureau. This worries people because there's a regular sort of line of threats and investigations that the Bureau director needs to be briefed on and needs some input on. Of course, there are some decision points that he must be involved in, and this is worrying them. I agree that we should emphasize that the FBI spokesperson, Ben Williamson, said that Kash is having meetings with senior leaders, but he wasn't extremely specific about those he's not meeting with.
I'm going to do something I don't always do. I would like to read the piece. It is new since I've been on the air, but I think it's important for our viewers to hear what you're reporting right now exclusively. FBI Director Kash Patel has ordered the polygraphing of more than 24 former and current members of his security detail, and other staff has been described as in panic mode to save his job and find leakers among his team. That's according to 2 people briefed on that development. Patel has walled himself off, as we've been discussing, from some senior bureau leaders this week in the wake of multiple media reports that raised red flags about his leadership. That's according to 3 people familiar with his recent actions. 2 of the people told MS Now that the director ordered the polygraphing this week of the former and current security detail members, as well as several information technology staff. I want to stop here and just, we don't focus in on this, but this is a hallmark of the Atlantic reporting as well. This is deeply sourced. Every line has a minimum of 2, in some instances, 3 sources. Just talk about that level.
Issued statements defending judicial independence, watched with evident concern. Justice Sonia Sotomayor pressed on the connection to the classified documents recording. The same recording that had caused gasps in earlier trials when Trump's voice admitted the materials were still classified and he no longer held declassification power. Agents who worked on that case had been removed. The pattern was clear. Trump's eruption reflected deeper anxieties. Democratic momentum from recent elections in Mississippi, where court-ordered districts delivered historic wins, signs of erosion in traditional strongholds like Ohio. The administration needed a strong showing. Instead, the hearing delivered public vulnerability, triggering the president's famous temper. Aides described the scene as chaotic. Trump pacing, phone in hand, issuing directives between posts, calls to other advisors demanding options for replacement if Patel couldn't recover. The loyalty that Patel had always shown was now being tested in the harshest spotlight. This live clash exposed the inner workings. The effort to turn federal agencies into tools of protection. The push to limit transparency on Epstein-related materials. The targeting of those who followed evidence in the documents case. Patel was there to execute that vision, but under questioning, the execution faltered. Legal experts called the moment historic. A president going off on his appointee in real time as the court dissects potential abuses of power. It undermines claims of independence. It fuels accusations of retribution. It damages morale inside the FBI, where agents already report fear of political wins. Democrats on the Hill moved quickly. Calls for further investigations. Potential contempt proceedings, public statements highlighting the hypocrisy of a director denying politics while facing public presidential rebuke for not being political enough in defense. The chaotic Supreme Court clash ties into larger stories. Voter shifts in key states. Economic discontent mixing with institutional distrust. The recording that changed courtroom dynamics. The walkouts and statements from justices defending norms. Everything is connected, and this hearing brought it to a boiling point. As the session continued, Patel tried regaining composure. More documents were introduced. More timelines examined. Each answer seemed to dig the hole deeper. Trump, unable to stay silent, went off again with additional posts criticizing the low-energy defense. The country watched transfixed. This was raw drama at the highest levels. A director fighting for credibility. A president losing patience publicly. A court asserting its role. The viral clips multiplied. Reactions poured in from across
of corroboration.
It's nice of you to ask, because I think this highlights something you may not intend to highlight, but think about what it must be like to work in the FBI or in law enforcement, and as we have described in our reporting, to feel that the Bureau is in danger because of who is directing it. And think about what it must be like to see colleagues and hear colleagues are being polygraphed, or maybe even former colleagues or friends, people who've been fired, and then still be willing to talk to me and to Ken. So I'm grateful to the sources who continue to share information with us, and actually to other reporters as well. Come to us first, but yeah, I think it's pretty impressive. I think it's just really pretty impressive that people feel this information needs to get out and take some risks to do so. The corroboration is important. I thought the Atlantic's corroboration was really impressive as well. A very deeply reported piece of work. I wasn't involved in it, obviously, but they spent a lot of time and energy and confirmed to their solid view of the threshold. They confirmed something that a lot of reporters, including me, had been hearing about for a while and trying to confirm this idea that he had to be rousted in the morning by agents who were concerned that he might be quite ill or worse as a result of alcohol that he had drunk the night before.
I want to read a little bit more from the reporting. The FBI director demanded the polygraph examinations to determine if any members of the team that accompanies him on all his travels or staff who have access to sensitive details about his decisions have communicated with reporters, according to the People, who asked to speak anonymously due to threat of retribution. Now, there is nothing sensitive in his travels. He actually posts a lot on social media. He had cameras in the locker room when he traveled to the Milan Olympics and guzzled beer in front of them. What is it? Is it fear that gets them to even carry out an investigation into at least 2 reporters, allegedly, Ms. Fitzpatrick and the New York Times reporter who wrote about his girlfriend?
Yeah. So as we reported in the case of the investigation opened into the Atlantic reporter, sorry, I lost my voice there for a second. Agents and sources told my colleague Ken Delanian in pretty sympathetic tone that, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't open this probe. And I'm paraphrasing a little here. If we don't open this probe, the agents are fearful they're going to be fired. In the case of the New York Times reporter, Elizabeth Williamson, a former colleague of mine and a great reporter, it appears from the New York Times' very good reporting that was a case where agents were asked to investigate and were able to sort of tamp that down by saying the investigation was not warranted. Apparently, we've moved past that place in a very few number of weeks. And if you'll grant me the liberty, Nicole, I want to emphasize one other thing about polygraphing. In the course of reporting this story today, I learned something new that I'd never heard before, which was that Kash Patel, the director, engaged
the political spectrum. Trump's go-off wasn't just about one bad day. It was about the accumulating pressure, legal cases stacking up, political losses mounting, the need for absolute control clashing with reality. Patel's position became more precarious by the hour. Previous warnings from judges about inconsistencies in testimony. Now public doubt from the president himself. In Washington power circles, this combination is dangerous. The hearing adjourned amid the chaos. Patel exited under scrutiny. Trump continued his commentary. The story dominated every outlet. The clash will be remembered as a defining moment of tension in the second term. Further details paint an even more intense picture. Sources say Trump referenced past loyalists who knew how to handle pressure. He questioned Patel's preparation. The calls grew more heated as the hearing progressed. The entire West Wing felt the impact. This event accelerates calls for accountability. Midterm strategies shift. Public opinion moves. The FBI faces internal reckoning. The Supreme Court sees its role tested yet again. Trump went off because he saw a threat to the narrative. The chaotic live clash revealed fractures. The consequences will unfold in hearings, leaks, and electoral battles ahead. The Supreme Court demanded answers. Patel struggled. Trump erupted. The nation observed the full spectacle. Replaying the key exchanges, when asked about specific agent terminations, Patel claimed standard reviews. Justices presented emails showing political coordination. The contradiction hung in the air. Gasps. Note-taking frenzy. Trump's reaction was immediate and public. Another round focused on document delays. Patel cited broad authorities. Evidence showed selective application. The justice's skepticism was palpable. Roberts' expression spoke volumes given his recent interventions. Trump's posts captured the escalating frustration, each one more pointed. The live nature amplified everything. No filter, no delay, pure reaction. This style of clash is new in its visibility. Previous administrations had tensions, but the combination of social media and live Supreme Court coverage makes it unprecedented. The go-off becomes part of the official record. The impacts on agents are real. Morale reports show anxiety. Some veterans of the Bureau see it as politicization confirmed. Others worry about future investigations being chilled. Political analysts note the timing. Coming after Mississippi results and Ohio polling shifts, it adds to perceptions of instability. Democrats use it to rally.
That there is bipartisan interest in getting the answers to these questions.
See if they do. All right, Annie Greer, thank you.
FBI Director Kash Patel in a congressional investigation into alleged, quote, abuse of FBI jets and tax dollars. The investigation was launched today by the ranking members of both the Senate and House Judiciary Committees, Senator Dick Durbin and Congressman Jamie Raskin, who joins us in a moment. Quoting now from the announcement of the congressional probe into, quote, Director Kash Patel's misuse of taxpayer-funded resources, which was launched in part after, quote, receiving new details from sources about Patel's excessive travel, luxury expenditures, and personal activities disguised as official business. One example cited, Director Patel's now quite well-known trip to the Olympics in Milan. Well, for some, the beer chugging belied the Bureau's stated purpose for the trip, long-planned official business, which just happened to coincide with the Olympic hockey finals of Team USA versus Canada. Kash Patel is a big fan of hockey. In a letter addressed to Director Patel, Senator Durbin and Congressman Raskin point out that when he first announced he'd be attending Olympic hockey, there was no mention of FBI business. Patel wrote in a social media post nearly 8 months before the Games, NHL agreed to let the boys play in the next Olympics this coming winter. First time in over a decade. Team USA, I'll see you there. Director Patel was asked about the Olympic trip at a congressional hearing in May.
You attended the Olympics in Milan. How much did your trip cost, and to what extent did that help you carry out your mission?
We purposely planned that trip around the Olympics because, as I mentioned in my opening, the top cyber criminal from the CCP was housed in Italian custody. While there, we were able to work an agreement, an arrangement to have that individual expelled from Italy instead of going back to China. That individual was returned to America 2 weeks ago.
CCP refers to the Chinese Communist Party. He's speaking about this man, a Chinese national extradited to the U.S. from Italy more than 2 months after Patel's Olympic locker room celebration. The investigation also cites special perks on official international trips, including VIP snorkeling in Hawaii. That is likely referring to a snorkeling trip the director reportedly took to the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor, hallowed ground, a military cemetery where more than 900 service members are entombed. Snorkeling there is not allowed, with some rare exceptions for military and government officials, normally those responsible for managing the memorial. The VIP snorkeling was not on Director Patel's official schedule for his trip to Hawaii. Beyond VIP perks and international travel, lawmakers on both sides of the aisles are demanding answers on how Patel gets around Washington. It was revealed today by Durbin and Raskin that Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee and a stalwart ally of President Trump, sent a letter to Patel asking him to defend his purchase of BMW SUVs. Patel had reportedly directed the FBI to purchase the luxury vehicles despite the long-standing policy of the FBI director being driven around in Chevy Suburbans. In Grassley's letter, he also wanted Patel to list each flight he took on an FBI aircraft, if it was for personal reasons, and if so, if he had reimbursed the government. When asked for comment on the story regarding the SUVs, an FBI spokesperson said that 2 of the FBI's armored Suburbans needed to be replaced and that the BMWs, quote, had already been purchased by the State Department sitting idle and unused in their warehouse. The FBI purchased the vehicles from the State Department. Whatever the explanation, the many questions surrounding FBI Director Patel sure seem a far cry.
Republicans defend but privately express concern. The Epstein angle adds emotional weight. Survivors have spoken out about the need for transparency. The hearing touched on delays in those files. Public sympathy leans toward release. The classified documents tie-in is damning. The recording remains central. Agents who pursued it faced consequences. The hearing brought that full circle. Trump going off reflects the high stakes. His administration's survival depends on controlling these narratives. When control slips, the reaction is strong. The chaotic clash isn't ending with adjournment. Follow-up actions are expected. More filings, more statements, more drama. Democrats gain ammunition for midterms. Even Trump admits the problems, they argue. The narrative sticks. This is the reality. Chaotic clash. Presidential eruption. Institutional strain. The live Supreme Court hearing didn't just question Patel. It questioned the entire approach. Trump going off confirmed the fragility. Further details from inside. After the hearing, Patel reportedly called allies seeking support. Trump's team distanced somewhat. The rift is real. Legal teams prepare for next rounds. Contempt risks rise. Perjury questions linger. The public sees the disarray. Trust in processes declines. The drama feeds itself. Trump went off because the performance threatened everything. The clash was chaotic. The impact is lasting.